Om Shanti, and welcome to this special conversation on the topic Overcoming Procrastination. Many of us put off things to do at the last minute or the 11th hour. Can we overcome this habit? To discuss this topic, we have with us in the studio Brother Ken from Brazil. He is an Australian who's been living in Brazil for many years. He is a business consultant who's traveled far and wide, giving lectures, workshops, and seminars. He's authored 15 books in various different languages. He's also a Raj Yogi for the past 43 years. And presently, he is the coordinator of the Brahma Kumari Center in South Americas. We are happy to have you, Brother Ken, in the studio once again.
Great to be here once again. Nice.
We were talking about procrastination, and it is spread everywhere in some form or the other. Like students, we remember until there is an exam, there is a date sheet. What's the need to study that well? We put off things till the last minute, till the 11th hour. Why does it happen?
Oh, there are a couple of reasons, at least from my perspective. One is the fact that we live in a very crazy world, and there are all sorts of demands on our attention. And we get pulled this way and pulled that way, and so our mind becomes a little bit scattered. Mm-hmm. So we get lost in our own thinking. In one day we can have, up to 100,000 bits of things going around in our heads. And so we get stuck, in a way, in this scattering, and it's pretty hard to make sense of our own lives even. Mm-hmm. There are things to do. I had a friend who he could procrastinate things like connect with his family, but at work he was very successful. So I was talking to him once about that. He said, the success that I had in my business was when I centralized all of the administration, because he'd acquired different companies at different times. And when he put everything in a central administration, everything started to make sense, and then he could start to plan and prioritize and have goals and objectives, and he was pretty successful. But at the same time he got married, he ended up getting divorced 3 times, had 1 child with each of the wives. Each of them lived in a different state in Australia, and so his personal life was a mess. And I asked him, how can you be such a mess in your personal life and such a success in your business? And he didn't have an answer. I said, what did you do? You just told me you centralized your administration. So why don't you do that with your personal life too? Who are you? You are not your work. You are not your family. You are not what you do. You are who you are. You're not a function of those things. And if you can separate yourself out, then you stop putting off the things that are important. So the first thing is, we're so scattered and away from our central state, let's say, that it becomes difficult to work out what to do and how to do and why to do. So we don't only procrastinate with difficult things, we procrastinate with simple things as well. If I'm tired, I'm lazy, it's been too much for me, I can't handle it anymore, I'll put it off. The second, I think, is connected with a false sense of confidence, that I'll manage, I'll get through. You get a project that you can finish in 1 day, but you have a month to do it. Normally you'll start doing it on the 29th day, right? And that's a false sense of confidence, because maybe you won't be able to do it altogether. And you'll do it in a sloppy manner. You won't do it properly. You won't do it in a well thought out manner. So you have a sort of, I can do it. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. So you just put off what you could do in a more reasonable stretch of time. You have to cram it all together and try to finish it in a short time, because you have a false sense of confidence in yourself. So for me, those are the 2 main reasons why we procrastinate.
We talk more around it, but you mentioned selective procrastination. That means, which happens that I would do something immediately, and I am very good at it. It could happen at home as well. It is like you mentioned,
everything.
Two different areas. So if it is in the same area, and if I'm selectively putting things off, do you think it is about the fear, or is it about taking up challenging work?
I think it is both of things, right? If you've got a full sense of confidence, paradoxically, you'll be afraid, because you probably at the back of your mind you know that it's a full sense of confidence, so you're afraid that you won't be able to do it, but even then you put it off. So there is fear, and I saw a presentation once, and the presenter had a big glass jar, right, big one, like this big, and he had lots of rocks. And what he did was, first of all, he put all of the little rocks and the sand in, and then he tried to fit in the big rocks. Of course, they won't fit. Mm-hmm. So what he did is, okay, I'll show you how to do. Put the big rocks in first, and then you put the smaller rocks, shake it a little bit, and then you put the sand, and everything fits. Mm-hmm. So the idea was that you should do the big things first, the things that are important, the things that are, probably urgent, right? We have to think of the urgent things, because they will just press on our buttons all the time. Mm-hmm. But we should try to make sure that we're moving away from urgent things and doing the important things, because sometimes the urgent things are exactly urgent because I've been lazy and I've put it off. It's become urgent. Sometimes when I get an email that says urgent, it's something that someone sent at the last minute. So, we should try to identify which are the big things that we have to do that are important. And of course, in between, we have to leave some time for urgencies, but we should try to identify what things are the important ones. And then the little ones can fit in.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about prioritization. Prioritization versus procrastination. Sometimes people are busy. Sometimes, they're not lazy, but they're doing something or the other. But they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, surfing on the internet, for example, looking on Facebook.
So how do I actually make a good prioritization of my tasks? Because I do not know, I'm very busy. I think this is important. I'm sure that when I'm doing it, I feel this is important for me to do at this time.
It's important to have personal planning, because you have to work out what's important before you start to prioritize, and things that are important because of something that you're trying to do. I'm a writer, for example, and sometimes I do get writer's block. It's sort of, I need to finish a chapter, but I'll put it off until tomorrow. And in fact, it's a common thing with artistic type people. You're a musician. I'm also a musician, by the way. And if someone comes up to me and says, play a song, it depends. I may not be in the mood. So again, mood counts. Mm-hmm. But if I don't have an idea of where I want to get to, I probably won't know what I have to do to get there, right? So if I have an objective, and it could be a personal objective, like in family, it can be a work objective or a study objective, I need to do something by a certain time. This is, even if someone else doesn't put the deadline, an imposed deadline. Sometimes at work you have imposed deadlines. You have to do your bit of the strategy by a certain date, because all of the other people depend on you doing that bit. Mm-hmm. So some of the things are defined for us, and some of the things we define. But I have to be very, very clear, and this is why it's connected with scattered thinking. How can you be clear about what you want to do if you're just, being pulled and pushed by all sorts of thinking during the day? So once I know what I have to do, I can work out what's the most important thing I can do within that? What's the biggest chunk of that? What are the 2 or 3 main things that I have to do? to get to there, you know. And that requires, you know, not much planning. In fact, in the Brahma Kumaris, we are asked, like one of our basic orientations is to not only make an agenda for your activities, but make an agenda for your mind. Mm-hmm. So what sort of a mind do I want today, you know? What sort of a... And if I keep myself clear and centered, what to do is obvious. When I'm not clear and I'm not centered, you know, there's too many things competing for my attention. So, and the easy thing, you know, it's easy to sit back, be lazy, have a cup of tea, and watch YouTube or something. And or, okay, that time you're spending watching YouTube, you can be finishing the chapter of the book, or you can be, you know, completing that bit of the project. Mm-hmm. So I become lax because I'm scattered.
Mm-hmm. So it requires both a long-term clarity of the objective and then day-by-day planning of the agenda for the mind.
Yeah, most people don't have a planning mind, you know, they just sort of allow things to happen. You know, there's a story, I mean, probably people are familiar with it, Alice in Wonderland, by a British author called Lewis Carroll. Mm-hmm. And she got lost in this, you know, amazing sort of imaginary world. Mm-hmm. She got lost in her own imaginary world, actually. Mm-hmm. So it's quite deep what it means. And she's lost wandering around her own imaginary world. And she goes up to the big cat, and she asked, he's a Cheshire cat, it was sort of a special type of cat, very fluffy and fat, you know. And she says, "Mr. Cat, you know, please show me the way." And he asked, "But where do you want to go?" And she said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, if you don't know where you want to go, any way will do." So that means you can go anyway, mm-hmm. if you don't know where you have to get to. Mm-hmm. So that's what happens. If you don't know where you want to get to, you allow yourself to be open to anything that competes for your attention. So, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. And so you get pulled here and there, and you forget to do what's essential. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't have any important tasks, you should sit down and think about what they are, mm-hmm. and then start, you know.
Mm-hmm. So it's very important to remind yourself, if you don't want to be distracted by other things. While I'm talking to you, I understand sometimes people make plans and things don't go according to the plan, especially, you know, in the times that we're living. Something will happen, you plan, and something will happen to you. Somebody will come and they'll just, you know, it'll be just the reverse of what you think. So then there is also a feeling that you've planned so much, nothing works out. Let me not just plan, let me just go with the flow. There is also that attitude. What do you have to say around that?
Well, if you go with the flow, you're going downwards. Like a river. River doesn't flow upwards, it flows downwards. So if you go with the flow, you're flowing downwards. And you're meandering like a river does, you know, this way, then that way, and that way. First it just tumbles over the rocks, uncontrolled, and then it starts to wander. And finally, near the ocean, just near the ocean, it starts, here's the ocean, so let me sort of start opening up. It's the same, you know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I remember I was with a group of HR, human resources managers in Mexico, about 100 of them. And I asked them, you know, I was giving a talk, they had arranged a special program for me to give a talk, because they had invited me to their international congress. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, okay, you all have strategic plans in your companies, right? And they said, yes. These crazy times that we're living in, how often do you have to adjust that plan? And they said, some of them said monthly, some of them said weekly, and a lot of them said daily. Mm-hmm. Because you have to watch where things are going, you know. So you have your plan, but you're also prepared for small changes. And that's a question of an internal ability. First of all, the ability to read situations and see what's happening. Secondly, the ability to be flexible and also courageous sometimes. Because sometimes the signs are saying, don't do it, don't go ahead, stop. So you must stop. So we have to learn to read the signals as well. So that's an internal ability. It's not something you can learn in a book.
You've given a very deep insight that it's not just about making a superficial plan or to-do list, but actually developing that ability of flexibility, of clarity, to understand the situation and to actually change yourself accordingly and take action. Be ready for a change as well. But of course you must have a plan, some sort of a goal.
Some plan, yeah, some basic plan. But also you need to have that inner ability to adjust, okay? And also sometimes the sign is saying, don't do it. It's not the right time, wait. So it's not that we have to complete every task, Sometimes I'm not ready, I don't have all of the information, I don't have all of the ingredients, I don't have, I want to make a cake but I don't have, vanilla flavor or something. I need to at least have the basics ready so that something can happen. And I often do that with my writing, I create an outline of a chapter, like the headings, the heading and the subheadings and the subheadings, and then I know how to fill things in. So I can have the outline sitting around, and when I find, let's say, an hour in between, I sit down and fill in those things, and it's really just a stream. And I need to be concentrated, and I need to, I need to arrange not to have interruptions too. So that's also important. So if you're going to do something important, just tell your friends and colleagues, family members, look, I need an hour to finish this, I need half a day to finish this thing. So just interrupt me if something urgent happens. So you just arrange not to be, people normally respect you. Because they would also like to have something to do which is important. So you can organize yourself so that you get support from the people around you, and you can have a basic plan that you can fill in when you need to or when you can.
A very important thing which you said, it's about once you have that basic plan, to be concentrated and not to be distracted and disturbed. Many times, the other person is not disturbing you, but, you take just a break and you just serve the net, or you do something, you get up from the table, however it is. So internally also a person has to plan that I do not have to be disturbed, even if I have the urge of, getting into something which is frivolous, like you mentioned.
Not necessarily frivolous.
Or,
I was talking to someone recently, and they said, one day and this is how my morning went. I sat down, I looked at the emails on the computer, and I started replying them. After about half an hour, I felt the urge to have a cup of tea. So I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea for myself. And as I was looking in the refrigerator, I noticed that there were no potatoes there. And so I thought, oh my God, I need the potatoes for the evening. So forget the email, forget the computer, they go to the supermarket. And they meet someone there, right? And the person invites them for a cup of coffee, and then the person actually has an urgent need, a request to make. It's actually urgent for her, but not for the other person. Please help me, and so they end up spending 2 hours helping the person. And at the end of the afternoon, they get back to their house, and they remembered they have to go back to, they forgot to send the emails. They've been sitting there since the morning. And she bought the potatoes, But I mean, if you're not concentrated and not disciplined, that can easily happen. You just go all over the place in a day, and you forget what you were set yourself down to do. You know.
Exactly.
So the best is to do the important things in quick bursts. You know, and even put off the desire for a cup of tea or something. Just finish that bit that you have to do. You don't have to spend 6 hours doing emails, but look at the important ones, and of course you can have programs that can help you sort things. You know, get some tools also to help yourself to not waste time. They have things like an alarm on computer if you're too long on Facebook, for example. It starts beep, 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 and then you remember, oh yeah, well, you know, that sort of thing. So get some tools to help yourself. And do your things, important things, in quick bursts, rather than
stretching them
just trying to sit there for 6 hours. You'll never do it.
Because concentration, of course, is you have to be concentrated for a short time, complete your task, and then, you know, like you have the time for the sand or the small rocks.
So what I said to this friend of mine who had the successful business and disastrous families, I said to him, learn to go to the center of your life, where you're not a function of any of the things. You are just yourself. And from there you'll see things a little bit more clearly. If you're jumping around mentally all of those things without any self-awareness, you will easily get distracted. And you put off important conversation. That's another thing too. You procrastinate, especially the most important things we need to do. I think everyone who's watching has an important conversation that they've been putting off. It's a difficult conversation, but you can prepare yourself, you can train yourself. But the best training of all is to learn how to meditate.
You mentioned about meditation, and you've been meditating for more than 4 decades. Tell us a little more about it, and also request you to lead us into meditation.
Okay, I think if you've been watching this program often, you probably know quite a lot, but basically it is to center yourself in the awareness of who you are, a spiritual being, moving the body, getting things done. You are not your body, you are not your roles, you are not your tasks. But from the center you can administer all of those things. So meditation helps you to center into that consciousness and have a sense of your deeper qualities. And as you go deeper and deeper into the meditation, you'll start to feel very calm, and things will start to become clear.
And you develop those flexibility and the power to adjust, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, you know, it's not in the first day that you're going to do that, but you can definitely become more flexible, more powerful, more easy to adjust and understand things. So let's do a little experience. Just sit in this state of awareness of the things around you. And behind the eyes, the level of the forehead, the middle of the forehead, a few centimeters back actually, there's a subtle seat where you are thinking. That's where the headquarters of your thinking. That's where you are as a spiritual conscious energy. So just become aware of that, and you give yourself a chance to feel that, yes, in my state of rest I'm peaceful, I'm loveful. And even further than that, so you're sitting in that state of peace, and you feel who you truly are, a spiritual being using this physical body, playing roles through it, living in this world. And even further than that, you go to a state where you're beyond the physical dimension, just surrounded by light. This place that we call the home of the soul. And just remain there in that state for a few moments. A peaceful being, light, free, and easy. and then come back to the physical world, refreshed and ready for anything. A quick exercise.
Which can be done in between. If we practice it, I'm sure it'll make a lot of difference. Thank you, Brother Ken, for coming over and sharing your insights. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.